I'll make a motion, we approve the abatements.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Aye.
Okay. Superintendent's status report, that would be you, Scott.
That would be me. So, not a lot different from the prior one. Phase two skate upgrade is still progressing, but really slowly. They're approaching 50% completion on that, but they are making progress. I mentioned the Chandler Ave and Little Road sewer stations. We're well into, their project. And right now, we're running on our own equipment, but it's not 100% complete. We're still waiting on a gas meter for Leonard Road for the new generator. And because it was undersized for the equipment that we have now. And also the, upgrade the electric service at Chandler Ave. The water main replacement program that we appropriated at fall in town year 21 has a bid opening date of June 1st. So that's coming up. No real, leaks or breaks is required there, so we've been doing maintenance. Tomorrow, the rate hearing from June 13th will be advertised. That's what gets in the paper on Thursday, is required for 2 weeks notification.
Right.
And other than that, we're still doing our routine tasks and maintenance.
Okay.
Scott,
Mr.
can
Chairman.
we get a copy of that?
Experience with this,
No.
hot
You
weather,
want-
any
I need
increase?
a copy for my records, that's all.
If you want this,
Do you have another copy back at the?
that's on my computer.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yes, Scott,
Yes.
with the hot, weather over the weekend, did we see spike in usage, or,
I haven't seen a significant spike. It is going up though.
yeah?
Scott, I noticed there's nothing about the sewer going in at the ballparks on here.
3.3.
No, that-
Currently.
That's, still ongoing.
Oh, it's
We
on the.
started construction, deep construction, one that was awarded the bid, and they started, I believe a week ago.
Yeah, that should be on here. And, just the,
What is that with it?
the sewer line they're putting in at the ballpark, down in,
Winter Street.
South Walpole, Ballfields. Is that what they call
Where's the funds coming from?
it? I'm sorry,
I think it's called the sports complex or something.
what's it called?
Sports, for soccer, just for all kinds.
Okay, anyway, the one that's on the Norfolk line, they're putting sewer in.
So, no, my question was where the funds are coming from. ARPA funds.
But we never approved anything here.
We never
The
discussed
Sewer Water
it.
Commission,
Last meeting we had discussion about the.
It's in the
different
docs.
projects. But, the other question, you just said that there's a water pipe replacement project.
Yes.
Is that, again with the ARPA funds?
No,
Yes,
that's
but-
appropriated, was it the fall town?
Well, annual town meeting
Yeah.
21 was appropriated, but right now it's on consideration to be on the project.
Okay.
So the funds are in place now to do it, and the bid openers are usually for us. If that's one of the ones selected for ARPA funding, we'll go in that direction.
Yeah, I think we should use as many as, water pipes replacement, because then you don't have to provide the audit, details, if it is for the pipe replacement, by default, it'd be easier for you to just say that, yeah, it was.
It's definitely under consideration.
Yeah, that would be easy.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I interrupted you, but
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Meeting minutes of March 1st.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting on March 1st, 2022.
Second.
For discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Policy review, 28 Homewood Lane. Request for consideration. That's for the toilet road.
There's two addresses, it's 23 Homewood Lane on the memorandum, but on the agenda it's 28 Homewood Lane. I think it's, the address, actually, the address is 23.
Could be just a typo.
Typo on the, could be typo on the agenda.
Scott, do we know, are they on sewer? I don't think on Homewood Lane is.
You got a sewer charge.
No. I'm open, actually.
Since there was a sewer charge
Right.
at 331.50.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I make a motion that we do our standard approach to pay for the water through the meter, but if we know that it didn't go through the sewer, but in this case, we do think it did go through sewer. So in this case, I would say that following our standard procedure, he has to pay for the water.
It's our policy.
Yes, water and sewer, right? So that's a motion.
I'll second that. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Next one, 130 Wonder, 133 Wonder Street. This is a high usage.
So the homeowner requested that we test the meter, and we did. We have the test report here. The report actually came back in the resident's favor. The meter was only 67.7% accurate. On the low flow rate, it was not registering. And on the medium rate and the high rate, it was registering. So as far as the meter being inaccurate, any inaccuracy was on the side of benefiting them.
Which address is this?
This is Winter Street, 131.
131 Wonder Street.
How much
In
is
other words,
the local
they got the benefit of the meter running slow, and I think the resident was saying, hey, the meter must be reading fast, and as he was told by the folks in the office, we've never seen them run fast, they run slow as they wear out.
The other thing that goes along with that is, at the time that this was going on, there was a tenant in the property who was in the process of being evicted,
Right.
and there's some question about whether there was something going on with that. After that tenant moved out, things were back to normal.
I would say that the money's owed, and the landlord can go after his tenant if he feels that there's something there. So I'll make that a motion to deny the
Second.
request.
Is that sewer up there?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Hasenchak is second.
Second, okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor of that?
Aye.
As we have said, I don't know the meter issue properly, so I'll get some.
Okay, one abstain.
What was the other one?
Okay, then, planning board, zoning board, I'm sorry. Howard Barnes. Hi, John.
There's a couple items that I suggest that we send in a letter to the zoning board. One, just reminding them that this is adjacent to zone 1 for Washington 5. The other item is the density of, certainly it's allowed to have homes in that area, but if you
6
can,
buildings.
well, but 28 units, when you know, families will be there, when you compare the density of Darwin Lane, which goes, you know, to the end where this new project, this is 4 times the density, and it's clearly much closer, it abuts the, zone 1 for Washington 5, and, I think that would be our concern.
If I could expand on that, though?
Pardon me?
If I expand on that, it doesn't just abut it. Part of zone 1 is on the property. There's there's no village or anything on it. It's just like vegetation, but it's actually partly on the zone 1.
There's a little arc,
Exactly.
but that we own that arc.
Right, we bought
Yeah.
that.
And so it can't be part of their project.
But it isn't.
It is not?
It is not.
Right, it's not part of their project. Yeah,
That's right, we paid for it.
yeah, we
I'm
own
on
that
board.
little arc. And the other thing that I would suggest is that, because of the construction that goes very close to the Zone 1 boundary, that we insist on that there be a fence on that delimitates where the Zone 1, because I don't want, you know, construction activity going, well, it's easier if I get around it on this side. So,
You're making a motion to send that to the,
zoning board of appeals,
Board of Appeals.
right.
made that as a motion.
I'm making that as a motion,
I wanna add to his motion.
all right?
Okay, and, when I got this, I really didn't like the idea where it says, all application material can be found digitally here at blah, blah, blah places. All the other ones had it, they gave us the information in the packet. Okay, I want I want the information in the packet, I don't wanna go searching on my computer for something I don't even know. I need a locus. I need something that I can see. And I can't vote on this, but I can complain to them that, so my motion would be, what's your motion?
My motion is regarding that it abuts our zone one for Washington 5. There is a density issue of it being 4 times, that's
I
developed
know,
4 times.
how big of a fence do you want?
I want a 6 foot,
You want an impervious fence?
no, I don't want impervious. I want a fence so that there is no way that, one, while they're constructing, they stay outside of the zone one, because the only thing that is allowed would be, I think, hiking, hunting, and there might be, bike riding. I mean, there's fishing and whatever, but there's no sense, there's not gonna be fishing.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Did you go to this website,
Yeah, I've gone to this website.
and you
You can see,
printed all the stuff?
yeah, you can see the stuff.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh,
So,
well, here's.
I'm going, because I can't vote on this, because I didn't see it, because they didn't provide it like everybody else did, I'm going to abstain.
Well, if I could just make a correction here, the providing it would have been by Mary Timilton. The zoning board has never provided us with the information as part of our package, so,
Okay, how about we table this until we get the
well, they're
actual
gonna
printouts?
be hearing on Wednesday. So if the board doesn't wish to, I will make it as just a private citizen that there's my,
Well, I don't feel comfortable voting on this, not knowing exactly what,
No, but
how it looks and how it's.
his motion is about the, putting the boundary wall, so it should be, at least that should be considered.
And I'm also saying that because of the concern of the fact that it is 4 times as dense as anything else approaching, a zone one, comparing it
saying-
to Darwin Lane, the existing home,
After you looked at all that stuff,
yeah.
you think that that's the only restriction you wanna put on this project? Is a fence?
A fence and, no, I would like them to, reduce the number of units.
You didn't say that.
All right, I haven't written out what I'll say, and if, but
All
that's.
right, tell us what your full motion is.
Reduce, all right, one, just stating that it's adjacent to the 400-foot zone one for Washington 5.
Radius, yeah.
Yes, that the proposed development is 4 times as dense as the other part of Darwin Lane, and the fact that Darwin Lane's close, but now you're putting something 4 times as dense, but making it even closer to our well, and that I wanna see a fence that delineates the radius, so that the construction, while they're building it, can't get onto our property, because they will, if it's easier, and particularly if there's no delineation.
But otherwise-
And when it becomes occupied, that we don't end up with a swing set or a sandbox or whatever.
So that's the only restriction you wanna put on this property.
That they reduce the number of units because of the density.
And how about, what's the grade on this property?
The grade?
The grade.
This is mountain growth territory. It's up, down, whatever, and on you can look online, and you can see where they're doing the, I'm gonna add one other thing about the grading, and if they're, chopping off some of the high spots and filling in the low, well, the high spots, the amount of distance from the surface down to the water table, that serves as filtering our groundwater. And so if you start taking off you're reducing the, amount of time filtering, and if you're piling it onto another area, you're gonna be compacting it, which is probably going to not flow as easily. So, that was the other item that,
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Is that it? You'd never, nothing else?
not that I can remember.
Well, how about the driveways? Are they gonna have driveways?
There'll be a
On
roadway,
these-
if I recall, it comes in and it goes off. It's a little bit different than what they originally
Okay, they're
proposed,
gonna
which
have
was gonna
driveways.
come down and then sweep up. I
Are
don't
these
see how
driveways flat?
The dark driveways, I'd have to look at the grading and all.
Because I get a feeling they probably need to put down some type of chemical to melt the snow.
All right, I'll add that. Snow issue.
I can see them,
Yeah,
and I can see that stuff washing
yeah,
into our,
yeah. There are,
well, since it's
I
right
don't know if
there.
you've been out there, Pat, there are places, it drops off so steeply that you can stand there 5 feet away, look straight across and see the root of a tree. I mean, it is that steep, it goes down, it's really,
Let me ask you another question.
yes.
Is this appropriate to be built on?
No.
No, but, I'm looking at it from a 40B standpoint, it
Is it appropriate?
I guess in the fact that it would be allowed. And in fact, that one of the things when we had attempted to purchase the land or get it was, we were looking, okay, can you just put a couple of houses on there? And also, we also talked to them about, you know, a swap, a land swap with other town-owned parcels, which by itself, you can't just say a swap, you gotta say, this is surplus, anybody can bid on it, so that
We
we,
threatened us with a 40B.
well, they now come with a 40B.
We wouldn't pay us millions of dollars for the place, you know?
Yeah, well, and it can be, I mean, I'm just looking at, from a practical standpoint, they can do that, and in fact, because the Summer Street thing had put us into, I forget what they call it, but basically a holding pattern, because we had met our 10%, they had come and said, all right, if you'll allow us to do something, we'll only do like a 7-unit, thing, if you'll allow us to go and ignore the hold. And they eventually, the zoning board said, no. And the people there said, no, we don't want anything, even though they said, look, once this hole is released, and I believe it has because nothing's happened on 55 Summer Street yet, that they would be coming back with a 40B, which they did. I mean,
Darwin Lane, people are gonna be all kinds of upset.
well, you know, I'm just looking and saying that's happening, and so make the best of it as we can, so.
Let's go back to why this doesn't have the information on it,
I'd like to answer that back before.
but the other ones do.
I believe there is a print, but it's not in this pile of material, there is a set of plans.
Uh-huh.
There's only one set. You got things, the applications here, that set of plans I can get.
All right, but I can't make the decision until I see those. And, but you, just to go back,
Yeah.
this is, if you look at the other things in our packet, you'll see there is explanations and drawings and et cetera, et cetera. And I was just curious why this one was,
And I'm saying that, and my understanding is, the only reason we got them is that Mary would go, we got
no,
this big.
you said would, used the subjunctive.
Well, she would normally do that.
Well, how come we got them for the other two?
Because Mary was doing our,
And this one she didn't do?
she's not our secretary.
Yeah, but if you look at the memo we got from the town administrator,
All I can
it
tell you
says
is
that
the
she would
zoning
still
board doesn't
function.
send them. The zoning board doesn't provide us
she
with
would
those things.
function as our secretary and make sure we've got the information we need.
I mean,
And if, we can revisit that now if I can find it on my computer, but he promised us that while we were searching for our own secretary. If you remember, you know what he said.
yes,
Okay, and what I
if the
am,
board doesn't want to vote for it, that's fine. I'll write on my own as I have for
Well, I can't vote
55
for
Summer
this.
Street.
in good conscience unless I know all the information.
Then you can vote no.
I think what Bill says is to protect us and our water supply.
As best that
I
we
can
can,
go
given
along
the
with that.
circumstances.
We
We're
start,
gonna
we
have
start
to
with
meet in
the.
a couple of days.
We
We gotta
start
get
with-
something to them.
We can discuss that again in the next meeting. We start with the motion to put the fence
Yeah.
and all.
I'm gonna abstain on this until I have the information. You know,
I'm
we're
making a
always left
motion
in
that
the
I will
dark here.
send as, but for the, as from the board, and if there, if we don't, I'm sending it, I will send it under my own name.
Okay, well, I'll second your
All right.
motion.
I second the, I
Oh, you
support
already
the
did.
motion to, put the fence to protect the wet.
What, we don't know his motion yet. What's the motion?
That, remind them that this property abuts our zone one for
Okay, that's not a
Washington.
motion, reminding.
No, I'm telling you, and you can fashion it into a motion, Pat. I'm just telling you what I'm going to write, or what I want, is that about the 400-foot radius around Washington, 5. That they should reduce the number of units, because what they're proposing is 4 times as dense as the rest of Darwin Lane, and this is adjacent as opposed to Darwin Lane, which is, further away. The grading issue of, if they are going to, proposing to, grade some of it, reduce some of the, higher spots and put it into the lower spots, the impact of that is less filtering, and the fact that when they put it in the lower areas, it'll be compacted, which is going to hinder, the filtering, and the issue of, addressing, snow, icing and whatever. Those are the items that I would put, and I would phrase it better, but those are the topics that I would cover.
You second that?
I second.
Oh, I got a motion.
Well, we got a motion and a second.
He can put that in, but then I'd like to say, any and all protection to well, what's the number?
Washington 5.
Washington 5.
To well 5, must be used if this project is built.
Any what did you, I lost from that, I'm not sure what you wanted.
Any and all protection must be provided.
Yeah. Any and all protection to well number 5
All right.
must be used if this project is to be built.
And what would you, I mean, I could say the fencing is going to provide protection, that's, as.
Is that all?
Well, if they follow.
And then you can say-
If they follow the zoning regulation, they can't do much of anything other than the hiking, biking, and hunting. And they can do fishing too, but they're not gonna catch anything because it's dry land. Then I wanted, by requiring a fence so that they can't inadvertently, intentionally or otherwise, get onto our.
I guess you're not understanding. I'm saying that's so simplistic. This is such a complicated, situation there, that if you wanna put that in, and you could put, at the very least, a fence,
So, okay, you want,
any and all protection to well number 5 must be used if this project is to be built. And you can say, such as,
okay, I'll add that in.
such as,
Yes, the fencing,
you know, whatever you wanna put in,
you're right.
if you're gonna be specific like that.
Well, my intent is to keep them off.
I
out of zone
understand,
one.
yeah,
That's what
but
we
you
want.
know that DEP would immediately put a hill, hay bales, and
And I'm not looking for hay bales, I wanted
you
some.
want a permanent fence.
Yes.
You didn't say that.
Well, I did earlier, I said to keep the construction, and I don't want, when it's all done, to have a swing set that we find that's in the zone 1 or a
That's not a
sandbar.
permanent fence, is it?
No, to keep, the fence would prevent them from having, extending their backyard.
You wouldn't be able to slide down the hill a little bit at a time.
And if we just keep the vegetation there, there's no way.
So can you add all that into your one?
Yes, I will.
What motion?
No snow sledding.
All right, Patrick?
What?
He's gonna add your stuff.
Okay, add out such as,
So we just-
and you know what's gonna happen, they're gonna put in more things, right? Because there's all kinds of things we don't know about,
Right,
Okay,
for the well
that's the
protection.
motion, I think we got a second.
right.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Okay,
All right.
and we'll have that off tomorrow for the ZBA, and if possible, I will attend the meeting.
You call John back in. Next one is 24 Heidi Street.
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, you know, where is that?
It's up off of Cedar Street, up off of West Street. West Street, Kyle
Yeah,
Road,
yeah.
up in that area.
South Walpole.
And I was very, and so, reading all this, we do have information on this. It looks like he wanted to do a Form A,
There's a stub there now.
a stub of a
Road
street.
stub. Right.
And what they're asking him to do, basically, if he wants to do a Form A, is to continue the stub to a point where he can get access to this house. Is that correct? From reading this?
It
Is
seems
that
like
right?
there's some question of, I thought we had this, the ability to do this, then for some reason, no, you don't have it, and they want him to waive whatever. I mean, it seemed to me it has nothing to do with water and sewer, and my thought would be that the Sewer and Water Commission has no comments on this. I don't know, John, you're more up on zoning
What's
issues
the,
and whatever.
What's the skinny on this?
You talking about Heidi, you talking about?
Heidi,
Hiding, yeah.
I was just thinking that's a lot at this time.
Oh, we got stuff.
One comment I would have is, one of the details, it shows a folly service line, not Cabo. So that's one thing that we look at.
but isn't the thrust of the whole thing is that the developer thinks that he has the rights, and the planning board saying, no, that got lost or, was changed, and he wants to be able to do what he says he could have done.
It's off of Wendy.
Yeah, it's down in that area, John.
Yeah, that's a conservation thing, there's wetland in there, I think,
Yeah.
that's significant between the two
I mean,
areas.
they're not asking anything about sewer and water, they do say, if they came for an entrance, that's when we would tell them, no, you gotta do, we want you
Okay,
to
so
have
this
copper or
is a
whatever.
stub street?
I thought that we did on some real long stretches that we allowed, something other than, a plastic line.
The plastic has less friction losses.
Yeah,
Is he gonna get his water from Heidi?
I didn't see that on the plan.
Okay, where's this, is this what we're
It
talking?
would be high, yeah, 'cause that's what we're wanting.
Okay, is this the lot we're talking about?
No, if we hand this one there.
It's this one here.
Right, so they'd be tying in from that one right
Okay, so what's the problem here? I don't get it.
yes, they're not even talking about access to water and sewer, they're talking about, if you read the, information here about, they're looking for waivers on this, that, and whatever, because they had it at the okay at one time, and then for whatever reason, I mean, it's just a purely planning board,
Yeah.
And it's
bureaucracy,
up.
then the.
No comment
Right,
at this
yeah,
time.
this
Yeah,
is-
that's what I
this is
thought.
Okay,
You
so
know,
it's
if
going down.
the
And
guy
this-
gets it, or if they have to do whatever,
Okay,
Then
this
it's
street
an
starts
entrance issue.
where, John? Right
Well,
here?
it doesn't show, this shows like this being constructed, it doesn't show where the
Yeah,
previous.
the water line goes,
now. Like Bill was just saying, it's not even the point where they're ready to
yeah.
move forward, so they found that they can.
No, I think you grew up, this isn't here right now, I don't think.
okay, the water line goes
This
to
is,
here.
no, this is here, this is just proposed.
Okay, it says existing water line,
It might be a
okay?
cross-country water line, I don't know.
Okay, see,
There's snub there.
Scott, where's this coming from?
Wendy, I think on the other side of this would be, I believe that's from Cal Road, right there it is.
If you look at the thing, nature of the request, the locus is presently an undeveloped lot citing on an established street created and approved by the board being the planning board, in above referenced subdivision. Accordingly, it is afforded the adequate necessary frontage required by the town's zoning code for development. However, the board has previously taken the formal position in a response to a Form A filing that the access to the lot via Heidi Street is unacceptable because, in the words of the board, Heidi Street has never been built out on it or accepted by the town. As such, the petitioner's previous Form A application was denied. At this time, the petition requests the board take steps to modify the previous approval of Swanee Estates subdivision for the limited purpose of authorizing the necessary limited roadway improvements required to allow for locus to be determined as a buildable both under the subdivision control law and current applicable town regulation. I see nothing related to
I agree
stormwater.
with you.
It's,
I move no comment.
that's what we ought to do.
Okay, I'll second no comment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, carried. Dunkin' Donuts.
This is for our 15th Dunkin' Donuts within the town.
Driving.
Again, I don't see that there's any sewer
This is
and water. It's an
water.
existing building. They want to have two driveways rather than one.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we say no comment, the board has no comments.
Well, this property though was in Norwood.
I thought it was in Foxborough. When I
No,
was,
this
it's
is not
been
in
on
the
Norwood, what?
This is down in the mall,
It's that one,
I believe, right?
It's
It's
on,
right on Union Street, isn't it?
no, it's on 51 Boston Providence Highway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
it.
down in the mall.
Oh, is that it? Because when I do a Google search, it puts it down, it looked to me like in Foxborough.
Do I know what Pier 1 Imports used to be?
Pardon me?
You know what Pier 1 Imports used to be?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right there across from.
Oh, yeah, no, I know
the
which
bicycle
one.
shop.
Like I say, I think it's the 15th Dunkin' Donuts in the town.
Yeah, we need more Dunkin'.
Yeah. So I think no comments is
Okay.
appropriate.
So what it would be? Coach Road Sewer Extension.
This is,
I would just point out that last one, that when they give the address, the property is in Norwood, they don't say what town it's in. They give the owners,
Somewhat.
no, it's not. It is in
Yeah, it
Norwood.
is.
The Dunkin' Donuts,
yes,
Yeah.
Right in the corner of Union Street and Route 1.
yes.
The
That's
line's right
local.
there.
It's right on the line.
I don't think so.
The line probably goes through the parking
It
lot.
does go
The
through the
line goes through, the property across the street is also in Norwood.
Right.
Right, but not the donuts. That big warehouse, we had, the Tesla wanted to, it's Walpole.
Yeah,
It's right on
well,
the
it
line.
comes in at an angle across Union
Big
Street.
warehouse.
Yeah,
The line is very close, so right there is where one of our interconnection is with Norwood,
Yeah,
so it's
right in
very
the
close.
street.
Dunkin' Donuts is.
There's Norwood water in the street there.
It's an interconnection if we ever use it in an emergency.
right.
There's a
Well,
valve.
it services, I mean, you got a street, and there's a Norwood business on one side, and I believe a Norwood business on the other. You're saying the Dunkin' Donuts is a Walpole business, but I'd like to see the line going through there, because
Yeah.
I think
There
Dunkin'
is a-
Donuts is,
And in
Norwood.
their impact statement, they say they're get their water from Walpole and their
Well,
sewage from
that's the
Walpole.
point.
But not, they're not asking for
Any-
water
No.
from, they're just saying, and then they say it's this existing building, so,
Something to do with the drive-in, wasn't it?
yeah, they wanted
Well,
a
double
two-lane
drive.
driveway rather than a single.
Yeah, no, I'm not objecting to it, I'm just trying to clarify.
Scott made this up for me, and it's if you notice on this next one,
Yeah,
we get, I don't know, 10 of these pieces, like a picture puzzle, put together. So he drew it out for me, and you folks should look at it also. It's the sewer project there. This is the sewer project.
Oh, he's gonna do these over here too?
No.
Or
Yeah.
they're just, we asked them, here's an area of town that the master plan did not cover. And it didn't cover it because of a policy, at least whether it was ever voted or, but, that we would not sewer the rural zone because they have big lots and they would have sufficient room to put septic systems.
Well, we changed that policy.
That's fine, I'm just saying, that's the reason that the master plan did not cover. So, because there's been some question by at least a couple of people up in that area about sewer, we said, well, we don't know anything about this, the master plan never covered it. We asked Wesson and Sampson to, give us some idea of what it would cost, how to do it, etc. One thing that they did not do is say, all right, here's what the cost, and it's A, B, whatever, you could break this into, 2 or 3 projects. But they didn't say, and here's where it fits in our 20 phases, prioritizing it, because that would have been a useful piece of information. I know that we've had a letter, Julie's husband, Brian Bain, is, on our last meeting, was inquiring and asked if I could get him a copy of
It's
the,
up on the High Street.
yeah, he's in the area, and then he would be covered by, basically almost by where the letter A is where it is.
Let me add a little bit to your information.
Sure.
Also, those lots were zoned at 2 acres. By having the sewer reaching into the rural zone, the lots were reduced to 1 acre.
Right,
So, that was why, that should have been always sewer, because it was 1 acre lots.
yeah, they were,
They were late.
well, any of the areas that were sewered in that area were done not by the town, but by the developer, I
By
believe.
Walsh.
Yeah, so. Anyways, it's.
Anyway,
it's-
Scott made this up just because I couldn't configure it
yeah.
in my head, which was going, what was happening.
These are all my son's friends' houses, so I know this area.
Well, I mean, my thought is, however it would be, if we wanted to do any sewering in town, you'd consider our priority list. I mean, one of the things you would at least ask, whoever's on phase 1, that the high priority, are you interested? Because it is going to be very expensive for them. And they may say no. All right, number 2, and you could go, and it would be interesting to know where this one fell.
Who started this whole thing? Scott.
Well, I think, John, you mentioned there's some folks up there, I think.
Yeah, Coach Road,
Mr.
we had a list of failed septics.
Yeah,
And there were some in the area here by Coach Road and,
And who came,
well, once we heard from
Chicory.
that, I went to the Board of Health and said, could you tell me how many, what's the frequency of pumpings in this area? I also asked down by West Pine Drive, it's also a rural area that's missing sewer, and I hoped that Weston Sampson would have addressed that, but they didn't. So that, we got a sense as to how big of a problem it is there, 1 or 2 house lots that are having a problem, or is it?
Bill, the other thing is, we've done this before, we sent out things to all those residents and asked them if they're interested.
Right, and would they hook up? Because,
Yeah.
the problem we had originally was people would say, oh, yeah, I want sewer by the house, but I don't wanna hook up until my septic system fails. And we're saying, wait a minute, no. And there's no way of forcing them to do it, but once, if
But
you
they
have
have
a
to
failed
pay into it,
system
it
and
doesn't-
sewer runs by you, the Board of Health will say you're hooking
Same
sewer.
as a 10-year thing to pay it off.
Well, yeah, or the betterment could be for 20 years, but when you look at the price, I did the 4th priority, which was, down in South Walpole, is the streets that were concrete, there was,
Pitching post.
pitching posts and that, whoever.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Diamond Pond, not Diamond, right opposite Turner's Pond, the opposite, Downing Street. It was an easy one to, and when you looked at the betterment, which is 75% of the cost, 25% would go on the sewer rate, it would be doubling, the betterment would double their property tax for the next, 20 years, doing 20-year borrowing. And so I think not only would you wanna ask them, you'd say, and here's the cost of what it's gonna do, and there may be people who say, I really don't want a mounted system, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper, even though it might be $30,000, but for, doubling my property tax bill, and I think that's something, if any area that we decide to
Plus the
sewer.
price of using the sewer.
But
Well,
we-
that's right, all of a sudden your quote water bill now includes sewer, and,
We haven't, sent letters out to these people,
no, we
so
haven't.
we need to do that.
And I
That's
think,
what I was saying.
yeah, well, we would certainly have to do that, and I think that the
And if
password
they-
is, what do you want it? I think you gotta
We
be
should
able
run
to
down
tell
the
them,
price too.
here's what you're, so they make a good
Yeah.
decision, and maybe they'd say, yeah, I really want sewer, rather than,
Can't we get a price like per linear foot or whatever?
well, it's in here, it's like $6 million to do it, which you know, by the time that we actually get around to do it, it'll be a little bit more expensive.
How many
Well,
houses?
does the MWA have special financing for that?
They
Well,
have
there
loans.
could be some SRF,
They do,
there
John.
might be some
So,
SRF, which
Scott, they were
money, which
talking
could
about
be a lower interest, I don't
Loans
know
for
if this
sewer
time, sometimes they've been zero,
Probably
sometimes it's been a low interest.
Let me explain my reason for bringing that up, and I wasn't the only one, but
Yeah.
people did mention this to me. The Board of Health people and the conservation people have been very stingy now about septic systems and about recharge and about groundwater and how deep, and they've been forcing, it's so when people on the septic go to sell their home, they don't comply with the standards, and they've gotta face, could be a $60,000, not 30,
Yeah,
bill to do a whole new septic system up to new standards, and many times that involves a big mound in their backyard instead of a swimming pool or whatever else.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's catastrophic, and some, maybe like a widow, her husband dies, she wants to sell her house, she can't sell her house because her septic system won't pass. Now she's up the creek and she's got all these expenses, so there's concerns. And I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit of a narrative, but this last town meeting, the stormwater management thing really drove me crazy. Because they changed the regulations from regulating builders who were doing a house lot into 40,000 square feet or so, to 5,000 square feet, which is like a garden. Now everybody's gotta do a soils analysis, have a survey, do a topo with their lot, analyze any wetlands in the area. And according to what the agent told me, is if the water coming off your property doesn't meet all the standards, they go down the street to the stormwater basin, and you have to fix it.
yeah.
You got the citizens fixing the roads, and they're trapping them into these new regulations. I mean, God put the water on your roof and had land on your land, why should you have to clean it up for the town of Walpole, what the Lord sent down from the sky, for crying out loud? And you gotta build a recharge thing and clean the water, put pipes on all your roof corners and put them into a thing, into a well on the ground. I mean, the government's going crazy with this stuff, and I'm just worried about, sewer may be the last resort, but to have an option for people, because they're like under attack. And I think the environmentalists, I don't mind saying it, is they talk out of both sides of their mouth. One time they say, oh, we gotta recharge everything, and we gotta put everything back on the ground, can't have anything go out. And the other way, they won't let you have a septic system that makes any sense. And I think there might be other solutions, and I would really like to explore, like in Cape Cod. They have all types of different waste removal systems that aren't allowed in Walpole or anywhere else around here, but are allowed down in Cape Cod. And there may be other alternatives than us having a sewer street for people to go to that are economically feasible.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I just concerned they get left out on a limb with no alternative. And that's why, since we were talking about a sewer program, I think, if the low interest rates would have better, an area like this, Walsh did probably $50 million worth of sewer work for the town of Walpole. He brought it right up to Pine Hill Drive and right up to the corner here. I mean, he laid it up for us and put it on the table, like all we have to do is connect the two dots. I mean, it's like, we should at least look into that, because it's,
Yeah.
as a community service, it makes sense.
To answer your question, Patrick, it's 155 homes,
I'm sorry, what?
155 homes.
Okay, so what does that come out? $6 million divided by
And the linear
155?
feet, that's around the 16,665.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
20,000 per house, Steve, has quickly done the arithmetic.
Well, 40,000 over
And then,
30 years, but,
yeah,
and it used to be tax deductible.
I I don't know about that, but
Yeah,
anyways.
it used to be, that's what I'm saying, until, I think, are your house taxes tax deductible now?
Property tax, but,
So
you know, realistically, you can't do it,
Why not?
because there's a limit of $10,000, and the, standard deduction for a married couple is in the 25, 26, depending on your age, 27. We're doing the taxes for the seniors, I think I've done maybe 3 itemized, and it was all because of huge medical, had nothing to do with what people used to, if you owned a home, you itemized.
The whole way we used to sell it
Yeah.
was that, yes, you're going to get sewer, which is gonna increase your property, but you're gonna put it on your tax bill, but your tax bill is tax deductible. We're gonna give you a low interest rate, you're gonna pay it over, 20 or 30 years, and it was basically per day, the cost of a pack of cigarettes. That's what it was. Now,
Cost of cigarettes apparently.
no,
I mean, I think if we were to do something, you first gotta say, is there interest? And I think you wanna make sure we explain, it's not just, it's gonna appear in miraculously. They gotta know that water bill is gonna have a sewer charge. Here's what it costs to connect, here's what you're gonna pay somebody to, connect to the street into your house, if you gotta reverse some plumbing, let them really know. And then I think, in fairness, you'd wanna also, look at the prioritized list and say some of those. And I suspect that when people look at the cost, they may say, I may have to get somebody, come and, pump my system twice a year. It's a lot cheaper than, this, so I'll keep doing it. And maybe what you've just mentioned, John, I don't know if, would the planning board allow, or has it even been looked at, what they're doing on the Cape? And I don't know.
down the Cape is doing a
It
hybrid.
really isn't the planning board, it's the Board of Health.
Well, the Board of Health, if I said planning board, I should have.
Down the Cape, they're doing a hybrid system.
Yeah,
Okay, we have a place down there, and in our town, they're starting now to put in sewer. And what basically, their idea of sewer is they're protecting the, seashore from
and the
contaminants,
ponds.
like the shellfish areas, things
Yeah.
like that. So that's their priority. So because everything is sand anyway. So what they're doing is, some people are gonna have sewer, regular sewer. If you build a big subdivision, you're gonna have to put in your own treatment plant, basically, these mini treatment plants. So the subdivision will be self-contained with a mini treatment plant. Each house will be on it, there'll be a community, what they call those things,
Yeah,
yeah, everybody has to pay to maintain it for the next.
I hope it does better than the retaining basins that everybody has a little piece of.
Yeah.
And they
Okay,
get filled up with vegetation, because no one, I don't know whose it is, it's not mine,
So
it is, no, it
their,
isn't.
their idea of sewers is to protect the environment. That's what their policy is.
Yeah, so it's
So
not so
that-
much for the homeowner.
It's a little bit different, you're right.
Yeah, it is.
But anyways, and the other thing that we should keep in mind, current regulations, our town regulations are that 25% of the cost is part of the rate that everybody who's on sewer pays. And we've already I don't hear of anybody saying that the sewer rate's too low,
No,
so,
no, but that's part of
people
our,
saying that, especially town officials.
yeah, so,
part of our role though is to represent the public and the customer, the consumer, and I think many times the government agencies don't. They represent the
Yeah.
shellfish and the slush funds and the other things about big government. They don't represent the consumer's interest at all.
We need more information on this anyway.
Yeah, but 155 questionnaires or letters isn't an insurmountable survey. It's not that we have to do it tomorrow,
no.
but we could
Well,
write a little survey and a letter
And I
and.
think,
Some
working up the
testing.
costs, too, so that
I think
people
the
can.
survey's the
So
first thing, find out who's interested in it.
Well, I think that before you ask, you gotta tell them, and this is, it's it's not just that, yeah, there'll be pipes in your street, it's pipes in your street, and these are some of the costs that you're looking at, and, you know, so we get a realistic, opinion,
I mean, you could even have a meeting and have all these people come in
yeah.
and have their.
But you need the information to be able to
That'd be
say,
wild.
here's the,
That's tough.
what it really is gonna cost.
So, but in the case, let's see, it was 35 or 40,000. The model you're talking about that was previously, was 75% would go to the homeowner, which would be.
That's the current rate, because it used to be a much smaller, and the property tax even paid a portion, once two and a
I
half
think it
came
was
in.
25% at one time.
Oh, yeah, and then
So-
it just slowly,
That might become more, something in that category might be more reasonable if they had a $15,000 or an $18,000 loan through a program that had MWRA
yeah,
1% interest rates or something, that might not be a bad, and they compare it to having the system pumped and all that.
oh, yeah.
And their annual cost might be negligible as far as upgrading to sewer.
To comment on what you were saying about selling your house. When I bought my house in Walpole, it was on sewer, and they had just put in sewer about 5 years previously. But in order to buy the house, the owners of the house had to pay off that lien, which was basically the sewer charge. So that when I bought the house, I was clean. There was no lien on it because they had paid that off. So there is also a charge that way, but it's nothing like, you know, a mounted system where you're,
Yeah.
I don't even know how they do that.
How do you cut the grass up there?
No, how do you transfer the money on that? Do you take it off the cost of the house, or?
Well, that's on the homeowner.
It's on
They
the-
can't sell their home until that's,
And so how do they have to take it off the cost of the house, right?
Yeah,
well, they have to get financed to have it done before they can sell the house.
Oh,
well, either that or the new owner says, I will take the responsibility and sign whatever, but I'm not paying that
No
price, I'm
septic-
paying,
No septic builder's gonna take that deal. They want the cash.
no,
They want
no,
the money before they go and work there.
no, I understand, but they may say, and I don't know if, you know, there'd be some regulation, you wanna sell me the house, I really want it, you say, geez, I don't know, I don't have the money to do. I said, I will take the system as it is, I'll write
I don't-
to the Board of Health, I will, you
I
know,
don't
do
think
it,
you
but I'm
can.
not paying your regular price, I'm deducting, you know, whatever.
That's a state law, actually.
All right, so then they, when it turns is you get a loan based on the fact that you're gonna sell the house and you're not gonna recoup, you know, 700,000-800,000, you know, whatever the house going, it's gonna be, you're gonna take a haircut on it because, you know, you've gotta,
Sounds easy, but it's a miserable situation.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Bill.
yeah.
It's not easy.
Okay,
Anyways, if
moving right
we
along.
wish to do that, there's a lot of homework before.
Yeah. Okay, discussion items, upcoming rate hearing. Jim Johnson called me today and asked me where, we could have the rate hearing. Where are you guys interested in having it?
we could have, we'll have it, we could have it here, we could have it in the high school auditorium, what do you think?
I'm not gonna be involved in that. It's
That's
up to-
right.
it's up to you
We,
guys.
we've had it here,
We
and
have,
there is a limited seating, and we will fill this. We've also had it at the high school, and Mr. Moraski, I believe, has moved out of town, so we would have nobody. You know, and at that, so,
I think we should have it in a bigger venue.
yeah, so
I got a
the
feeling
high
people are
school,
gonna be interested
Yeah.
in this. So can we have it,
Well, Scott had the schedule for the selectmen's room, basically, right?
Yeah, the original idea was to have it at the town hall,
That's
between the
good.
two
So you have
options.
to
there's more seating here than there is at the finance
Okay.
committee room, or the, where the selectmen meet, you know, it has more seating than here, but the finance committee, that
No.
is a
Yeah.
horrible room
The select
for
board-
a meeting,
Meeting room seemed to be the best option of the two in the town hall.
yeah.
so do you think the selectmen's meeting room?
That would fit better.
Patrick's given us the good cameras,
Yes.
Is that okay?
Okay, is that all right?
Yeah, I would like one of these
So,
boards there, though,
it's
so
just
we
a
can
comment.
write
Last-
numbers.
Last year we had in the
That's,
high
yeah,
school.
because that's the only thing that,
I know, I
No,
know.
let's
we're talking all these different numbers, people don't
Joe, it's due.
visualize
I
what
think Bill was there earlier, but he left.
Might have been. Anyways, so we decided the venue,
So is that okay?
It's the select board's room.
okay,
Okay, there you go.
yeah.
All right. ARPA requests.
Oh, yeah, how are they coming along, Mr. Chairman? What we heard?
Well, we're using it for Winter Street to go up to the playground there, I guess.
splash pad.
Now, we have what, we have 3 or 4 different
Four.
things, right?
That's, yeah, there's 4 at the last meeting that were.
Yes, and what's the status of those?
Right now, they're all on the list.
And the selectmen have them?
No.
Why
I
don't
think
the
it's one
selectmen have them?
Because they haven't met yet.
Huh?
They haven't met yet to discuss the ARPA funds.
Okay, we make sure they get them?
Absolutely. So the thing is that if there's something that you haven't requested and you want to be put on there, we need to make sure that, the town administrator knows so they can be presented to the select board.
We want those 4 things on there.
They
Well,
are.
maybe, could you email us that list with the ability to add things on? So we have it, we can just send it back to you?
Email you a list to make it,
The
The existing.
the list of 4, with the opportunity to add like maybe 5 or number 5 or number 6 if we want.
yeah.
Because then you'd have it electronic from everybody at the same time. No sense may have another meeting for that, I mean.
Well, if we, at the rate hearing, once the rate hearing's closed, this could be on the agenda. If anybody had a 5th or 6th item or whatever.
Well,
I
the
believe,
town,
That,
yeah,
I think if we wanna get it to the select board as soon as possible,
well, how are we gonna set
That's
the
right.
rates without the ARPA? What we know we're getting? How
Well,
are we
there's no-
supposed to do that?
well, the ARPA funds would only cover for capital costs,
We know that.
and we're not doing any capital.
No, we went through that, but you understand that they all reflect.
No.
Yes. So, if we don't know what we're getting for the ARPA funds,
Right.
we can't in good conscience start setting rates. So,
Okay,
we'll have to, between now and the rate hearing, we'll have to think about that.
It's the 19th.
so the rate hearing, I believe, is June 13th,
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
and the presentation, initial presentation of the select board, I believe, is June 6th. And I believe the intent is not to make a decision right there, but to hear the projects that are being proposed.
Who's this, what's June 6th? I don't know about that.
Select board.
Select board.
Oh, the select board are gonna look at our ARPA,
They're gonna look at everybody's out, though.
huh?
They're gonna look at everybody's out.
Okay, good. Okay, that's wonderful. So we'll know.
So we've got our 4, right, we
Yeah.
would know if they are and how
Right,
they,
we'll know,
if they affect the rates.
we'll know where
yes.
we stand.
Exactly.
That's a good thing.
I
So-
would expect that, the selectmen will have their meeting, they won't decide at that point. Maybe we'll get an inkling is that, just based on the discussion, that, yeah, this one looks like it'll do, this one,
Well,
you know, the 4th one isn't gonna make it.
I gotta tell you, that's kind of unacceptable.
But some projects are already started, isn't it, using the ARPA funds?
We need to know where we
Yeah.
stand.
That's
Yes.
the point.
Yeah, they can't hold us up.
Right.
They said 2 projects already were started, so they haven't waited on everything.
Yeah.
But I think what Patrick's saying has some validity there, if you, because we're criticized of not having enough retained earnings for capital projects. But that piece of a pie would make our ratio look worse or better if we knew what projects could be accepted. And I think, what's concerning me in the finance committee meeting, in an answer to the finance committee, the town administrator said that he was very successful in hiring an attorney who could interpret proposals under ARPA and get them approved irrespective of how much they were really, infrastructure. So I almost got the impression, and then someone said, well, that gives you more latitude. Oh yeah, I have then plenty of latitude to go where I want with this money, so,
Yeah, I
It's
heard
not
that
like-
same thing.
yeah, so it's not like we're gonna automatically get our piece of the pie that we would probably traditionally get it by defining what's infrastructure. So we might have to make the argument. I think the only argument that may be sailing on the, not on our side, but on the other side would be based on a ratio of the revenue we produce to the municipal side of the budget, which would be approximately 30-some%, 31, 32%. That we would expect if there's 9 million of ARPA, we should get approximately 3, or if there's 7 million of ARPA, we should get 2 point whatever. As a target for us, our expectations to the selectmen, not to Scott. Scott's the middleman here, he's our representative. But I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, I don't know how else to do it other than,
Well,
you know, we can come up with more projects, but I mean, that's not really our MO or our desire is to pick out on the ARPA, but to get a fair,
of the things that are in, that would be in the rates for right now and, this current rate year and going forward, would be the June Street, Pilgrim Way, Rose Ave thing where the town meeting in the fall, appropriated, I think it was $2.8 million, of which we've spent some for design already, that ARPA could, do that. So there would be a small portion when figuring the rates that you could take out of, the debt service if, ARPA funds, but the bulk of stuff goes into figuring the rates, there is no capital projects, other than that street. So you would be able to go ahead, with the rates, you know, with maybe knowing that what portion of that $2.8 million and it's bonded over 20 years, you know, so it's not a whole lot of money. But I think any of the things that we listed are projects that are, you know, wish list at this point. They're not built into any budget.
One of the things I'd like to add in that is that PFAS, things like anything which we can use the fund to remove the PFAS or, you know, buy equipments or buy do anything. So you can have a PFAS project and you know, basically cut the cost of chemicals or anything which you're buying for PFAS. So that will cut our lot of operating cost also.
Well, right now, we're not trading for PFAS at all.
That's
Which
what I'm
is-
saying,
which is
is
fine,
that,
but you may have
when
to-
you look at what's in the budget calculation, the only thing would be, maybe if ARPA funds could be used for June. Anything of whether it's, you know, addressing the PFAS, a redundant line to the central pressure zone, you know, cleaning the raw water lines are all things that have not cost us a cent because we haven't said, yes, let's do it. And if we're able to get ARPA funds, it'll never show up on the rates.
No, but the whole question of retained earning was that to do some kind of this work, isn't it? To do the PFAS or to clean up the pipe or to put a pipe. So the point is to at least know the numbers so that we don't put pressure on the consumer to have more retained earning. We already have, let's say, $2 million of retained
Right.
earning. Why do you want the $3 million or $4 million of retained earning when we already know that, you know, we have sufficient retained earning?
Right, but we're not, the concern wasn't that we were building additional retained earnings. The concern was that we were asking to dip into it.
It's called rate
I
stabilization.
understand, Pat, I'm saying that it's not like that we said, oh, let's set the rate here because the retained earnings at 1 million and we wanted a 2, so we're gonna jack up the rates so that we can get it. That was not the issue. Issue was you keep taking out for whatever good reason or bad, not that you're putting extra in.
I disagree with that. I think the people at home, we don't have 3 accounts like people keep saying. There is no 3 separate accounts. And they keep talking about dipping in. We're not dipping in any. These are operating funds. We have 1 account. We operate out of it. We have retained earnings out of it. And they have another term they use is enterprise funds. But it's all the same account, the same money. So I think the semantical gyrations you're dancing through here that don't really square up. The point is that people want a ratio of the operating side of the enterprise, of the sewer and water enterprise, the two accounts, sewer and water, a ratio that provides a safety margin and allowance for capital projects and emergencies. And that, whether you call it retained earnings or whatever you want to call it, label you want to put on it, is amount of money that, as Patrick points out, stabilizes operations as well as stabilizes rates. And people are playing games with saying things out of balance, and the retained earnings for capital projects is too low, and we're not raising enough money from rates to fill the account to a certain level or a certain percentage. And there's also been the allegation that during COVID that we artificially reduced rates below what we were felt to or believed were going to be the break-even point as far as pricing structure for the budget for those 2 years. So we did try to stay near to 2.5, but that we still have a healthy retained earnings that were certified for
Taking away from the ARPA
no,
funds.
but
Want to
2022.
make sure people hear you.
Yeah, I do. So we're talking about the rates, what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about ARPA funds.
Well, the ARPA funds figure into it because the ARPA funds offset how much is needed in a given year towards capital projects and the potential of unknown circumstances that have to be funded. So it is good to know what the ARPA funds are. We can at least have a target estimate of how much they're gonna be. That would give people comfort in setting a rate lower than if you don't know. If you don't know, you tend to want to move for a higher rate under water and sewer to cover those unknown potentials and cover an unknown amount for capital projects. If you know there's an amount for capital projects, one might feel more comfortable with a lower rate.
Okay.
No, for the people at home, we keep saying ARPA. And just so everybody at home knows what that means, it's the American Rescue Plan Act. And put in there because of our pandemic. So when you hear ARPA, I know it's jargon, but it must sound like, what are they talking about?
Could I
That's
ask,
what it is.
as Pradeep, in your study of the neighboring towns, did you look at the rate of increase from last year to this year?
Yes, so everyone has a different dates. The only increase which I saw is coming in the school for most of them because MWR are increasing the rates for their own COVID thing. The water rates are increasing, but they are just trying to catch up with 2% or 3% increase. There's no, the whole reason of our resistance, I think most of us resisted to the town proposal of 18% increase or 2-digit increase was that's not feasible, so.
You didn't see like that, any 18%
No
increase
one,
in these other
no one is
towns?
increasing in 2 digits on any tier rates. That's the point.
No double digits?
No double digits. So rate increase happens, but it should not be double digit rate increase.
I just have a question also, I looked at it, it's interesting, Frederic. Did you factor in the flat rates, the minimum charges, the capital project fees, converting the rates, a number of them use gallons, not cubic feet, those.
Yes, so there was another spreadsheet which I did
Yeah.
with comparing each block also of, with fees and without fees. Whatever it is, what is the top in the first
So you
year
did,
itself, yeah.
because I was looking at, all right, I couldn't, when I went to like Sharon's site, I couldn't say what Sharon, then I go, well, I know they have a
This
capital
particular one
project
is-
fee, they have,
Yeah, this-
minimum rates
That's
that
correct.
are
But
meter
Sharon-
rentals and.
Yeah, Sharon also has a winter
Right.
rates which are cheaper than the rates what we are talking
Yeah.
about. They
So-
almost discount 10% off in the winter. The point is to know that, okay, other towns are charging in the same range. And if you are trying to be number one in the highest rate, why? What are we doing separately,
We might win.
Yeah.
Well, the
So-
other thing is, does Sharon have 2 treatment plants? No, it doesn't have, treatment plants, all those sort of factors also, but anyways.
It's all fine, that's why I checked with Medfield, Norfolk, everything, it's not just, Sharon or, Norwood or Westwood. It's everything around the Walpole,
Yeah.
you check the rates to make sure that you are not the top, charging, to the consumer.
Okay,
And the other town I would like to see would be Canton, which isn't in there, but.
I know Canton has a flat rate.
I saw Canton, but it is not touching the Walpole, so I thought, you can then pick up any town and then I can pick up anything to compare. So that's why I didn't do it.
Okay, town meeting votes.
All of us were there, except for, you weren't there, do you wanna know what took? I don't need that there's anything to discuss, I, presented our case, apparently not well enough to, change anybody's mind,
That
but
was a setup, Bill.
You articulated very well, Bill, I
So-
congratulate you on that.
at this point, I don't think there's any need to, we could go to the next item and,
Well, wait a
No, I
minute,
have-
could
I
you
have-
explain to us what they did vote and how that's gonna impact our rate setting?
well,
Did they vote for, did the thing
for
that the
water,
selectmen
they
adopted,
allowing
have a fixed,
80,000 rather than 161,000 from water retained earnings. So, there's like 81,000 that is more than, we have to increase the rates of what we thought we'd want.
So they
To
use
cover it for that.
using retained earnings.
Yes, but not as much as what we were. On the sewer side, we had a really, and I agree with them, sort of a shaky thing, that we were really short if we wanted to be, and I think it was 7.5% was what we were looking at, of stopping the Morningside Drive pump station project. Basically, like the design's done, now you're gonna spend a lot of the money to actually do the work, stop, and they said no, and there was one project that has been completed, it was like $3,000 or whatever, and the project's done, it's excess money, you can bring that in, and no use of sewer retained earnings, which really I think it was either 12 or 25,000, not a whole lot out of the sewer retained earnings. The big item was around $296,000, and to,
they just put that on the ratepayer back.
yeah, so, and, I had suggested as an alternative, I mentioned it when I was speaking at town meetings, that there is a meeting in the fall, you could borrow the remaining, and I don't know what from articles, do you need an article to undo something and then go, but in the end, they said, no, they're not allowing us to, use that $296 that have been appropriated for something other than, rates, so.
Well, the other thing that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have a comment on the indirect cost, they talk about, in the meeting, in our meeting, they spoke as if we have approved the indirect cost. And when in the town meeting, in none of the articles mentioned that we pay 1.79 million to the town as indirect cost.
It is
I was
pretty,
trying to-
Article 6, the motion for the big budget is, here's the revenue coming, and they will list so much from water, so much from sewer. Pat, you sit next to me all the time, you go, hey, where was that coming? I go, it's the indirect cost. And you go, oh.
But it doesn't say 1.79 million, that's the point I'm trying to
Oh.
say. And the indirect cost, you can say indirect cost, so we also have indirect costs for, let's say, fire prevention. Are we charging the town for that? No, we are not. The second thing is, the whole, budget for water and sewer is like 4.7 million and 5 something.
Right.
That we already raised by February. This is the actual number, we already raised by February 22. What we're trying to raise is indirect cost and, you know, so-called retained earning. That's the whole thing, 4 months of, you know, revenue. The third point is, if the 4.7 is to be raised as a user fees, we are already doing it. We have to raise the money for indirect cost. How do we raise the fees for the indirect cost? That's a plain and simple.
I've mentioned this a number of times. As the billing gap, and I know the billing gap's not as short as you'd like, but it has been shrinking, and what the result was, that revenue that would have been booked in the next fiscal year, there for a few cycles that are right near, we're sending bills out at very close to the end of a fiscal year, we're actually out early enough that the revenue, some of that revenue was actually recorded in the fiscal year, and the reason that we, had
That's
more
why
revenue.
I have the 5 years
And that's the
of history
five,
here.
where
Yeah.
there's some who got 5 bills or paid for 5 bills, because things, instead of 45 days, they were close to like maybe 35 days on the
Whose
billing
fault
cycle.
is that? That's not the consumer fault, that's a town fault of not being on
I'm just
time.
telling you, when you say we've already got that money, and you're
No.
right, we did collect that money, I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think it's wise to say we're gonna be able to do that again, because we've been told by Mary, I can't get the billing any shorter than 30 days.
No, that's a different issue. That meter lag time is a different issue. The whole thing is, I paid only 3 bills so far in this fiscal year.
So
I'm
it's your
assuming
fault.
everyone paid 3 bills, 3 quarterly bills so far. And the revenue is already 5.6 and 4.9, 5.6 for water, 4.9 for the sewer. We're already above the budget. This is February numbers, this is all they have given us.
And you're
So
correct
when
on
they,
those.
when anyone was talking in the any meetings, in the town meetings, none of them were seeing in the actual figures. They were just talking some random numbers or the spreadsheet numbers. No one is looking into the actual revenue. If you go and look at that, let's say other towns' proposals, they always talk about actuals. Norwood town budget shows last 5 years of actuals, and this is their budget. Here, it was all about spreadsheets. There was no real talk about actual revenue versus what we want to do. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And regarding the 30 days lag, that is a meter lag, which is calculated wrong. 30 days is bill to bill date, it should not be the meter lag date. Meter lag date can be, yesterday's meter reading can be generated today. You can have 1 day of meter lag. The 30 days meter lag is not needed. That's the whole thing.
Bill, you have anything on the production revenue?
The actual numbers, I thought
Let's
it
move
would be in
on
the
to
package.
topic here. I still wanna talk about this, John, just for a couple of minutes. Bill, the selectmen and the town administrator gave us a recommendation to clear the budget, which was supposed to be the main articles at town meeting. And they gave it to the finance committee. The finance committee changed it, so the town administrator went around and changed the articles and had the selectmen vote the main motion articles for the finance committee instead of the sewer and water. Left us with the articles we paid them to prepare for us,
Right.
to meet our budgets. So, and I confronted the town administrator about that in the town meeting, we paid you the money, and you gave us the thing, and now you've changed your mind and you're fighting against us on your own recommendation to us. But what I don't understand is, in his recommendation, although town meeting voted on certain aspects of our budgeting, to meet what they had proposed, he's proposing fixed charges. Is that correct, Bill?
That was one of the things that, we said, this board said, no. we
No,
don't
but
do that.
but this, I'm
Yeah.
talking about what town meeting voted, what the selectmen had, and his
No, I don't think,
memorandum.
at that point, no, the selectmen waited for our meeting, and then I think they waited for the FinCom also.
I'm not talking about the timing, I'm talking about the final vote.
At a town meeting?
Yeah, the final vote of town meeting was
Right.
predicated on fixed charges, that's how he got to
Well,
That's how it is. Their recommendations got to a solution.
no, I would disagree
And we
on that
didn't-
because they didn't get into the detail. You never
Well, I
heard that
mean,
there
that's
was
the-
fire
well, they did get the
suppression
detail.
on 100 customers. Basically, they said, here's the parameters, you come up with the rates how you want, except you're only gonna be allowed to use $80,000 of retained earnings. They
Which
don't
is-
care whether we have a fire suppression factor in there or not, or if we ramp up some other thing. They didn't get that deep in the weeds.
No, but they.
I
they did say-
disagree with that. The town administrator sat next to me at the workshop,
You're right.
and he directly proposed that, and he wrote it down
Yeah.
as to the fire suppression for the, and I even got a list of the companies, the 100 companies
Yeah.
would be affected. So it wasn't, that came from the town
Oh,
management.
yeah.
And, well, don't say it didn't. It
No,
did
no,
come from
I-
the town management, and they also had in there a $12.50 per bill fixed fee, John,
Right.
going forward. He
And-
did propose that, and they voted on it.
But-
So, I mean, that doesn't mean we
Absolutely
have to do it at a rate hearing,
Right.
but I'm just disclosing the fact that that was the intent.
Right, that
Okay.
was suggested, it came up, I think, someone, maybe it was you, Pradeep, who mentioned that other towns have a fire suppression. And then I think the administration, whether it was Rick or Scott or somebody, said, all right, and it had to would be into somewhere in the water department, because who else knows how many private hydrants we got and whatever, and it was originally not $1,000, $1,200, $250, it was a lower figure per hydrant. But that was never brought into the town meeting.
Yeah, I have.
That's not my point. My point is that's part of the proposal.
Yeah.
I assume the reason these people voted for that motion instead of the one that was prepared for us was because of that rationale, because it explained how they would get to the revenue clearing that they needed through those two vehicles.
Well, and I mentioned that it was suggested, when I presented at town meeting, that was one of the things that was suggested. We said no, and I think I covered the fire suppression thing, and,
I thought we did. That was your idea. We voted for fire
oh,
suppression.
yeah, no, we did. And I sort of gave it as sort of a background as to, this is where we started. We did it was suggested a per bill charge. The commission was not in favor of that.
It wasn't my idea, it was to reinstitute it. They had been before, and somehow it disappeared.
Right.
Chairman,
So
one
my
more,
point was,
one more comment on the fire suppression fees. We need to also add fire suppression fees on the public hydrant, and that should be adjusted with the indirect cost. The public fire hydrant fees are like, let's say $126 per year in New York State, or let's say $50 per year in Tennessee. So within those numbers, we should charge the town public hydrant fees. And
we're gonna
adjust it.
discuss this at the rate hearing.
No, this is the one of the
You know-
thing which was never discussed,
So can we pay that, Pradeep? I'm just-
indirect cost, I'll practice.
So it would be,
Town will be paying.
so in other words, instead of, 1.7 million, it would be 1.7 million minus some
Yes,
thing, and
number.
that would be to protect the
To
town's
provide the-
buildings
No, to provide the fire suppression service for the whole town.
for the whole town.
Yeah, and the,
I
you know,
guess
legal
why wouldn't
languages,
Why wouldn't they charge me, every one of us has got a
because-
hydrant somewhere
because-
in our neighborhood that's.
no, that is not how it works. The way it works is that, not everyone has a water connection, but they're paying the indirect cost. But everyone wants to have the fire brigade
Right.
come to their house,
Yeah,
and you can't charge one person who has the fire hydrant. So the idea is it's typically written in all these languages, who pay and what pay, the town pays to the water funds. And the whole language is written about public hydrant and about the private hydrants. So private hydrants is plain, simple and clear. Public hydrant, we
Well,
have to be,
this is
charge
something
something.
we could do for not the FY '23 rates, because the indirect is already locked in by what town meeting voted. You're not going to be able to, I suppose maybe at the next town meeting in the fall, somehow maybe you could.
no, these are the user and charge, this is charges for fire
Let
protection.
me,
There's nothing locked in.
can I
Nothing.
Well,
jump in here?
It
While
is,
we're
John.
at this, about the indirect costs, I was looking at, the previous meetings. I have not contacted the state audit people yet, because I never got a clear vote. And, can I get a clear vote about, shall we have the state audit our indirect costs?
I thought we voted that.
We never voted it, John. It was never, so I'm gonna make a motion, make it clean. I move that we ask the state to do a audit of our indirect costs.
Okay, I'll second
And
it.
that's a freebie, doesn't cost.
That's a
anything.
freebie.
Okay, sure.
The motion is second, any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
Okay, thank you.
Now
I
we
will
need,
stop
now we need
that.
another motion, Bill.
All right,
Something's
well,
going on.
before we do that, I want to just thank Chairman Spillane for his hard work, not only this year, but in prior years, and,
And I might be back if I'm still alive.
well, I've done that too, as you're aware of, come and go.
You both have done that.
Yes, we have, I know.
I was just gonna say, we get a citation prepared and get it framed for you, but wait.
No.
I told Mary, I can't come back, you gave me a plaque. Anyways, but thanks and wish you well, and we'll see you again
It's
in
been
the
fun.
future, yes. Other than that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We
Hey,
have
by the way, on the record and stuff,